Hi, I'm Emily Bessie, and I live in Maine. We are affiliated with spinal muscular atrophy. I found out I was a carrier of SMA when our 4-month-old son, Ezra, was diagnosed with SMA. I had never even heard of the disease prior to that. And it was only through his diagnosis that my husband and I both found out that we were carriers. So, spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA, is an autosomal recessive disease. And the way that we knew even to get our son tested for it was that he was not showing muscle development. With SMA, you're missing the survival motor neuron gene, which promotes muscle development. And so any muscle strength that he had at birth was really all he was going to have. So you think about everything in your body that's a muscle, like your heart, your lungs, your ability to smile or swallow, or move your arms and legs. It becomes degenerative over time. And for most children who have SMA type 1, it's at the time of his diagnosis, which was in 2012, it was a terminal condition. So we had always had trouble getting pregnant. We tried for years and then ended up going to a fertility center. This was before Ezra was even born. And so at that time, we were offered some genetic testing, but this was back in um, 2009 or so. And so the genetic panel wouldn't have even included SMA. It was more limited. I think they've expanded testing panels at this point. But our IVF doctor had definitely at that point started us thinking about like genetic testing because we hadn't even considered that. We were just fixated on getting pregnant. And then after, doing IVF and losing our son Ezra, we started exploring other options like PGT and that sort of thing to see how we could get pregnant, in a safe manner with a baby that would be healthy and thrive. So we have kind of a long story with, family planning options. So after our son died, we did start to pursue, IVF with PGT, which, can be a lengthy process, especially at the time when we were doing it. Um, so we had some embryos that were frozen that we were able to get tested. We had one healthy embryo from that, but unfortunately that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. So then we just started with a fresh IVF cycle. And through that, we ended up with one embryo that was healthy. And I was able to get pregnant, and we were very hopeful. But tragically, that pregnancy ended in a 36-week stillbirth. And then this was in 2015. Just a week later, I started to feel very strange. I was really trying to like stop my milk from coming in. And it turns out I was having a heart attack as a complication from the pregnancy, and ended up needing to have double bypass heart surgery. It's something called a spontaneous coronary artery dissection, which basically just blocks the flow of blood to your heart. So it's a very rare complication, but the doctors did say it would not be safe for me to get pregnant again. So at that point, we really expanded our family planning search. We knew of a woman who was interested in being a surrogate. We looked into embryo adoption. We actually even spoke with a woman who was willing to, let us adopt one of her embryos, which is a whole new thing that we learned about. And ultimately, given the risk that I felt I had taken in getting pregnant, I didn't really feel comfortable asking somebody else to take on that risk for me. So we really started looking into adoption and felt like that was going to be the right choice to help us grow our family. So once we had kind of settled on adoption as this is going to be the way that we pursue growing our family, we really wanted to be very thoughtful about how we went about this. We looked at both international adoption organizations and domestic, and we just really felt like our family. We have an older daughter who at the time was 5 and had been obviously through so much loss, and we just really needed to do as much as we could to minimize her risk of more grief in her life. Had just been a lot. So we felt like the international adoption felt more risky. So we made the choice to go with a domestic adoption, and we really wanted to adopt an infant so that we, could have the little baby from the very start of their life. And the other thing was that, we made the choice also to go with a private adoption agency that a good friend of mine was working with as well. So we felt like this was a group that we could really trust, and they understood our story and wanted to help us kind of minimize risk. That was really a big factor in all of our choices, was trying to minimize risk. Obviously, with any child that you give birth to or adopt or whatever, there's some level of risk. There's no guarantee of anything in life, as we have certainly learned, but we had to do our due diligence to make sure we were minimizing risk. So one of our factors was that we were hoping to find a birth mother who was willing to do genetic testing. And we knew that this was going to be above and beyond, what is normally asked of birth mothers, but that was a factor. And our adoption agency supported us in asking for that information. And so we, started the process, and it actually, shockingly, I know of families that it took years for them to adopt, but our situation moved rather quickly. There were a couple of different birth moms that we spoke with and had great conversations with. But it only took maybe about 6 to 7 months before we were matched with a birth mother. And she was willing to do a genetic testing, just like a cheek swab. And I actually flew out to meet her and helped her with it and popped it in the mail with her. And, she was very compassionate. She's a very loving woman, and she understood our story too, and was so happy that she could be part of us being able to grow our family. So I would say all in all, like, our experience was very smooth with adoption. I know that is not everybody's experience, as I said before, but I would say the financial piece, adopting is expensive, and obviously it's worth it. every every dollar is totally worth it, but I would say that was a big challenge. Additionally, a challenge was honestly like my own mental health around it, that I was so nervous about the baby being healthy. And our daughter, when she was born, she did not have the perfect experience in utero. There were some complications, complicating factors, not complications. But so when she was born, she was very tiny. She was 3 pounds, 9 ounces. So really the littlest baby I had ever seen. And that she was healthy, she was just small. And so she spent 2 weeks in the NICU, which was a little triggering for me, just having to worry about her and in that way, because as I said previously, we were very risk averse. And so we were trying to we just wanted a healthy baby to bring home. And so I had to do a lot of, you know, positive self-talk and called my therapist at one point and was just like, help me feel grounded here. And once I was able to recognize what was happening within my own body, I could work on grounding myself so I could just be present for this little baby. And now she's a very active 7-year-old who you would never know she started out life so small. And but yes, I mean, we feel very lucky with our adoption experience as a whole. It was just loving from start to finish. We got very lucky with the birth mother we were matched with, and of course we love our daughter with all of our hearts and are so thankful she's part of our family. So I am a person that loves information. And so for me, I guess I wish I had had more information from the start. And maybe it was part, our start of our family planning was way back, in the early 2000s. So maybe now at this point things have changed, but I just wish I had been more informed about the risks. At the time, I even remember thinking, when the IVF doctor was like, do you want to pay, I think it was $800 for this genetic panel? And, this IVF was already a financial stretch for us. So I was like, I actually remember thinking, which I can't believe given all that transpired, but thinking, let me just get pregnant and then let me worry about like what genetic disease my child has. Because I had, we were feeling so hopeless at the time. And this was like, we were scraping together the money to make IVF happen. And so I wish I had maybe had a more open mind to the risks associated and, how powerful genetic testing is. Like if you can find out that you are a carrier of something, that could have, if we could have found out that we were carriers, that would have changed our whole family story. So that is one thing I wish, that genetic testing just becomes the norm. We have a foundation called Hearts for Ezra, and we have raised money for research and other projects associated with SMA. And now there are different treatments that are available, thank goodness. So not everyone with this diagnosis will have the same outcomes that we did. But another big part of the work that we have done is advocating for SMA to be added to genetic panels. And I just think that pregnant women should have the option to find out what they are carriers of and have it be something that is a norm. Like when you start seeing a gynecologist, that you understand what you're a carrier of. So as you're in your, early 20s and you're maybe starting to think about family planning, that you have all the information that you need. I would say trust the process. We had been so like traumatized over and over throughout our journey that it was really hard for me to trust the process. But now here we are, our daughter Ruby is 7 years old, and to be able to go back and tell myself, at the start of this adoption journey, like, it's going to be okay. You're going to have a healthy, happy, wonderful little girl come and join your family. Like that would have probably prevented a lot of like sleepless nights, but here we are. And honestly, like, I don't want to say I wouldn't change a thing about our journey because I would change a lot of the loss that we've had, but it has brought us here. And um, she's an amazing addition to our family. I can't imagine life without her. Um, so, everybody has their own makes their own choices and follows their own path. And, ours has been quite bumpy, but it's also been an intentional path with lots of love. And so I'm thankful for our family.